In continuation to the earlier videos, in this video we'll solve problem number 6, 7, 8 and 9. Okay, now let's go to the sixth question. Tricol Limited, to provide telecom services in Mumbai, obtained a license on 1/4/2017. Okay, highlight the date. For a period of 10 years. It obtained license for a period of 10 years ending on 31/3/2027. And the fee amount is rupees 27 lakhs to be paid in 3 installments. And what is the amount of installment? Each installment is 9 lakhs. By the end of April 2017, April 2019 and April 2008, 17, 18 and 19 respectively. Okay, the company has commenced business on 1/5/2018. Now you are supposed to explain how the payment made for license fees shall be dealt with under Income Tax Act and the amount of any deductible for the year 2020-21. Okay. Now, before we go forward, I'll tell you what exactly is Section 35 ABB. Okay. This particular section, it explains you whether you can claim, how can you claim deduction when you incur any expenditure for getting a telecom license. Okay, so there are two scenarios further. One is before the commencement of the business, one is after commencement of the business. When you incur any expenditure prior to commencing your business, then the expenditure what you have incurred can be claimed as a deduction from the year in which you have commenced your business in equal installments every year during the period of the license. That is, if your license is for 10 years, your expenditure from the beginning of the year, you can claim it till the end of the expiration of the license. And on the contrary, if you purchase a license, okay, if you obtain a license after commencement of the business, you can claim deduction from the year in which you have obtained the license till the end of the year till when the license is valid. Okay, so keeping that in mind, let's go check the solution. The payment made for acquiring the license to operate telecom services in Mumbai shall be subject to deductions as per the scheme in Section 35 ABB. As per Section 35 ABB, any amount actually paid for obtaining license to operate telecommunication services shall be allowed as deduction in equal installments during the number of years for which the service is in force. Okay. If payment is made before the commencement of business, in our problem, payment is made on 1/4/2017. That is before the commencement of the business. When did your business start? The commencement of the business is on 1/5/2018. Let's highlight this also. Okay, 1/5/2018. So almost you have obtained your license 1 year prior. Okay, now going forward, if payment is made before the commencement of the business, the deduction shall be allowed beginning in the year of commencement of business. Okay, if it's in any other case, from the commencement, it will be allowed commencing from the year of payment. For example, you are already running a business. You have obtained a telecom license right now. Okay, assume your business is running from the last 10 years, but after 10 years you have obtained a license. So you can claim expenditure right from the year in which you have incurred that expenditure during the during the period of that particular license in equal installments. Okay, so in any other case, it will be allowed commencing from the year of payment. Deduction shall be allowed up to the year in which license shall cease to be in force. The amount of deduction available for the year 2020-21 is worked out below. Now, he is asking you to calculate for the assessment year 2020-21. Okay, so previous year of payment, and you have to also see one thing is you are paying it in 3 equal installments. 3 equal installments is April 2017, 18 and 19. Okay, so first make a note of the previous years in which you are paying your installment, that is 2017-18, 18-19 and 19-20. Now what is the unexpired period of license? Okay, for the first year when you check out, it should actually be 10 years, but it is 9 years. Why? Because you have purchased it 1 year before, so 1 year you're not claiming any expenditure because you have not yet commenced your business. Therefore your business is starting on 1/5/2018. When it is commencing from 1/5/2018, it is only 9 years from that, from 1/5/2018. Okay, I'll repeat this point. You have obtained your business license from 1/4/2017. Okay, from this particular date you have a life of 10 years. Your license holds a life of 10 years. So, but then if you calculate from the date of commencement of business, it is from 1/5/2018. So your period from 1/5/2018 till 31/3/2027 is only 9 years. Okay, so you can only spread out your expenditure over a period of 9 years during the previous year 2017-18. Okay, so it is 9 years and the installment paid is 9 lakhs, and 9 lakhs divided by 9 years is obviously 1 lakh each. And on similar lines, for 2018-19 you are paying an amount of 9 lakhs. Okay, 9 lakhs, which is again spread over a period of 9 years. Okay, from 2018 it is 9 years. Your installment paid is 9 lakhs and deduction in respect of each installment is 1 lakh every year. And in the year 2019-20, your license will further reduce by 1 year. That is, the remaining life of your license is only 8 years and the installment paid is 9 lakhs. And therefore it is 9 lakhs divided by 8 years comes to 1,12,500. So your total installment is 3,12,500 for the year 2021. Okay, for 2021 it is 3,12,500. Therefore the deduction under section ABB for assessment year 2020-21 shall be 3,12,500. Okay, so this is assessment year, don't get confused. This is assessment year. This deduction is for, this particular deduction is for assessment year 2020-21, that is for the financial year 2019-20. Okay, this particular expenditure will be spread out over the period of next 9 years. That is, 1 lakh has to be paid every year, and again whatever you have incurred in the year 2018-19 also has to be paid in the subsequent 9 years, and 1,12,000 has to be paid equally in the subsequent 8 years. So in the year 2019-20 you will be paying these three amounts, which is equal to 3,12,500. I hope you're clear. If you have any doubts, you can even comment below. I'll definitely respond to it. Now coming to the 7th question. Vermonte Housing Finance Company Limited engaged in the business of providing long-term finance for construction of purchase of houses in India for residential purposes. Provides the following particulars from its account for the year ended 31/3/2020 and seeks your opinion as to the availability of deduction under section 31(1)(8) and the amount thereof. Okay, profits from the business computed as per part D of chapter 4 of Income Tax Act 1961, but before claiming deduction under section 36(1) subclause 8 is 560 lakhs. Okay, so your profit before claiming deduction is 560 lakhs. Keeping this in mind, let's go forward. Now, what is section 36(1) subclause 8? It is basically applicable to finance corporations, okay, which provide long-term finance which for a period of more than 5 years. Okay, now in this particular Question also, the company is Finance Corporation Limited. Okay, and it is also involved in long term finance. So this section is certainly applicable to this particular company. And the provision clearly states that the amount of deduction shall be actual amount that is transferred to special reserves, or 20% of PGBP, that is before the deduction, 20% of 560 lakhs here, or 200% of share capital and general reserves minus opening balance of special reserve. Now here, if you look at, you don't have any amount that is transferred to special reserve. Therefore, the amount here is nil. It is not available. 20% of PGBP is before deduction. 20% of 560 lakhs when you calculate it comes to 112 lakhs. 200% of share capital and general reserves minus opening balance to special reserve. It is 100. Okay, when you calculate it, 200% of share capital plus general reserves, that is 500 plus 100, that is 600. 200% of 600 is 1200 minus 1100 lakhs, that is balance in the reserve created under section 36(1)(8). Okay, that comes to 100 lakhs. Okay, the deduction that you get is least of the three, and here the least is 100 lakhs. Okay, that's it. And then coming to question number 8. Okay, there is a kind of theoretical question, more of theory. Explain in brief the treatment as to the taxability and allowability under the provisions of Income Tax Act 1961 for the assessment year 2020-21 in the following cases. Atul Limited received the sum of 10 lakhs from Kiran Limited on 3rd January 2020 for agreeing not to carry on any business relating to computer software in India for the next 3 years. Okay, this is the first section of PGBP. When you look at your charging section, that is section 28, it clearly states one of the income which is chargeable under PGBP is non-competing fees. Whenever a person enters into a transaction and enters into an agreement with any other person not to enter into a business, okay, during a particular period in a particular area or anything, okay, if he enters into an agreement for not competing, and the second and any other person, he receives income out of that particular transaction agreement, then that is considered as non-competing fees, and that is chargeable to tax under section 28. Now the solution as per section 28, sum received under an agreement for not carrying out any activity in relation to the business, that is non-competing fee, is chargeable to income tax under PGBP. Accordingly, 10 lakhs, it is chargeable to PGBP. The amount should be allowed as deduction. The amount should be allowed as deduction to Kiran Limited, provided that he has been deduct. Okay, so he should even deduct tax at source, like he should deduct TDS under section 194. If he has not deducted tax, then he will not be allowed a deduction of 30%. So if tax is not deducted at source, 30% of expenditure, that is out of 10 lakhs, 30% will not be permitted to whom? To Mr. Kiran. Got it? Then the second point, P Limited paid dollars equivalent to 50 lakhs as sales commission for the year end 31/3/2020 without deduction at source to Mr. Rohan, a citizen of UK and non-resident who acted as agent for booking orders from various customers outside India. Now here, if you look at it, P is paying dollars equivalent to 50 lakhs. Keeping aside the money, it is sales commission for the year ended 31/3/2020. He has not deducted tax. But before you look into that particular aspect, you should note Mr. Rohan is a citizen of UK and is also a non-resident who acted as an agent for booking orders from various customers who are outside India. So he's a non-citizen of India. Second thing is, he has performed the activity outside India. He's received money outside India. So apparently his income is not chargeable to tax in India. So the moment his income is not chargeable to tax in India, you are not entitled, you are not supposed to deduct TDS. Alright, so let's check what is the answer. A foreign agent of an Indian exporter operates in his own country and no part of his income accrues or arises in India. His commission is usually remitted directly to him and is therefore not received by him or on his behalf in India. Okay, the commission paid to non-resident agent for services rendered outside India is not chargeable to tax in India. Since commission is not subject to tax in India, disallowance under section 40A subclause A is not attracted even though tax has not been deducted at source. It shall be allowed as expenditure. Clear? Now let's look at the B part of it. Can the following transactions be covered under section 43B for disallowance? What is section 43B telling you? 43B is a section which is clear, which is telling you that the act will allow you to claim deduction on the basis of payment. Basically, items covered under section 43B are statutory dues, something like income tax, sales tax, or else you can say even bonus, workman compensation, anything like this. Okay, so here the first point is a bank guarantee given by a company towards disputed tax liabilities. Now here it is a bank guarantee. Okay, just because it's a deemed payment, you cannot consider it as a payment. Money is not actually flowing from your end to the bank. Therefore, this is not allowed. Okay, under 43B, because cash in real time or through account is not being paid. The second point, interest payable to sales tax department, but interest payable to sales tax department, it is payable but not paid, but before the due date specified in section 139(1). Okay, section 43B is clearly telling you that payment has to be made before the due date of filing return. So here in the first point, bank guarantee is no payment. In the second point, interest payable to sales tax department is definitely part of the sales tax, but it is not paid before the due date. Okay, so it is not permitted. Both of these are not permitted. Now when you look, let's see what did they write. Yeah, for claiming deduction of expenses enumerated under section 43B, the requirement is the actual payment and not deemed payment. Furnishing of bank guarantee cannot be equated with actual payment. Actual payment requires the money. Actual payment requires that the money must flow from the assessee to the public exchequer as specified in 43B. Therefore, the deduction of an expense covered under section 43B cannot be claimed by merely furnishing a bank guarantee. Now the second point, interest payable to sales tax department is a part of the sales tax. Therefore, interest payable to sales tax department which is not paid before the due date of filing return would attract disallowance under section 43B. Got it? Now going to the ninth question. Okay, explain in brief the treatment as to their taxability and or allowability under the provisions of the Income Tax Act 1961 under AY 2021 in the following cases. A Limited, an investment company, received dividend income of 1 lakh on its investment in domestic shares. Fundamentally, please note, this is exempted. It incurs an it incurred interest expenditure of 2 lakhs on borrowed capital utilized in investment of those shares. So, keeping aside all the provisions, the fundamental is when your income is exempted, your expenditure cannot be claimed. It will be disallowed. Okay. Now, keeping that in mind, let's see what is the solution. The dividend income earned by A Limited on shares held by an investment is exempt under section 10 subsection 34. As per section 14A, no expenditure is allowed in respect of income which does not form part of the total income. Interest paid on borrowed capital is an expenditure incurred in respect of shares purchased out of that particular investment. Since the dividend income received on shares is exempt and does not form part of the total income of A Limited, the interest expenditure is not allowable as deduction in view of section 14A. Clear? Then the next one, B Limited is a company engaged in the business of financing and investment in shares. It suffers loss of 3 lakhs on account of futures and options. A transaction in the form of derivatives in which the underlying asset was shares. Okay, basically whenever derivatives, when they're dealt on a recognized stock exchange, it is considered an exemption to that particular section. Okay, exemption to section 43 subsection 5. So that is considered as a normal loss. Just a second. Yeah, that is considered as a normal loss. So here, a transaction in derivatives in which underlying asset is shares is exempt from the purview of speculative transaction. Therefore, it is not considered as a speculative transaction. Okay. In case of if it is a speculative transaction, a speculative loss can be only set off against a speculative profit. It cannot be set off from a non-speculative profit. A speculative loss cannot be set off from a non-speculative profit. So, keeping that in mind, in terms of clause D, proviso to section 43(5), as per the said clause, an eligible transaction in respect to the trading in derivatives carried on in a recognized stock exchange shall not be deemed to be a speculative transaction. Accordingly, in the given case, if the transaction falls within the meaning of eligible transaction as defined in explanation therein, then the loss shall be treated as ordinary loss eligible to be set off as a normal set of provisions. Got it? Then the last one, the third point, C Limited, which did not have any active business carried on by it, incurred capital expenditure on scientific research amounting to 5 lakhs that related to its subsidiary company. So the first thing, it has no active business. Second thing is, expenditure was not incurred on its research. It has incurred on subsidiary company. Okay, so therefore it will not be permitted as a deduction. As per section 35(1) subclause 4, deduction in respect of capital expenditure on scientific research would be admissible under the provisions of section 35(2) only if the scientific research related to the business carried on by the SSE. Here the SSE has not carried on, he has not spent that particular capital expenditure on his business. Okay, it was on his subsidiary's business, which is nowhere mentioned in any of the clauses. However, in the given case, C Limited did not have any active business carried on by it to which the expenditure incurred by C Limited related to its subsidiary company. Therefore, C Limited is not eligible for deductions under the provisions of section 35 subsection 1 subclause 4 read with section 35(2). Okay. Now the 10th problem will continue in the next video. Hope you are clear. If you have any doubts, you can post it in the comments. Okay. Thank you.